Okay, how to use Git. So I have started with just some random files, some code I was writing earlier, Lisp code. But the general situation is you've got a directory, a folder with files in it. You can see what those files are. Nothing particularly interesting. So in order to get version control using Git for some situation like this, you need to first initialize the folder as a Git repository. Git's not just tracking all folders, all files on your system automatically. You have to tell it where to start looking. So in that case, that command is git init. And when you write init, you need to say what folder you want to track. So in this case, I want to track the current folder because I'm in the folder I want to be tracked. So I do git init dot in that case. It's initialize an empty Git repository. It says it's using master as the main for the initial branch. Sometimes people will use main for the initial branch, but it doesn't really matter. I'll talk about branches later, but they're not super important for this use case. So what's the situation now? Now that I've initialized, I can do something like git status, and that'll tell me it'll tell me the status as Git sees it. So what's the situation? I'm on branch master, fine. No commits yet, fine. A commit is essentially a version, and there are a bunch of untracked files. Untracked means Git knows nothing about them. It's not paying attention to their history, and we can change that. So anytime you create a new file, it'll become untracked by default. You can change whether it's tracked or not by using the add command. So if I add tutorial and then do status again, now I've got a new file tutorial. It says new file because it's new to Git. So if you try and ask Git what the previous version was, it says there was nothing previously. Now what's the version? It's the full file. And in fact, in this case, the sensible thing to do is probably actually to add absolutely everything. So there's a special command for that. That's git add dot. That will track absolutely every file. It's complaining that I'm adding an embedded Git repository because one of these folders actually is already a Git folder. That's complicated. You can probably ignore it. Okay, I fixed that problem. If I now do git status, there's nothing there. Redo what I just did, git init dot status. If I add everything now, it should not complain. So what's the status now? It's got loads and loads of new files. Fine, who cares? So what do I do now? I could make some changes, but at this point I actually want to preserve a snapshot. So in Git, the history of a folder is described in terms of what they call commits. But you can think of the commit as just a snapshot of the files at one period of time. So if I want to say, this is what my folder looked like today at this time, then I do a commit. The way to do that is you type git commit. You can pass a message on the command line to just say what I want to say. This is a test commit, and that removes any onus on you to have a text editor that you need to open. But if you want to write something longer, then you can just write on the command line, and you can just do git commit with nothing. I haven't edited anything, so I had to make some changes. Get rid of that. Status. Alright, the file's changed, so it says there's a modified file there. Add that change. And then I'm going to try and do a commit. So if I don't pass any arguments, it'll open up a text editor. In my case, it's Vim. And it says you have to provide a commit message. The message is the same thing that I just provided on the command line, but now I can have multiple lines in it. So for example, if I said I deleted a line from the Emacs tutorial, then I made a multi-line commit message, and I save that. What's this now? Everything's clean because I just made a commit. So it only ever shows you relative changes relative to the previous commit. I've now made two commits, two snapshots, and you might want to look at them. So there's a command called git log that lets you look at them. So what does that mean? You can go arbitrary detail on this, but it shows me the history. This is the commit I'm on right now. This is the commit that immediately precedes it, and you have this kind of linear history. So the sequence of, if you have a very, very old Git repository that's had lots of changes, you get very, very long single line of commits, and that's how the history is built on, the history of each is built on top of the previous one. Suppose I wanted to go back to the commit from earlier. I decided that my change to the Emacs tutorial was a mistake. You can do that manually if you want. So you can go into the file, undo your previous change, and then write it. You see the file's changed again, you add it and commit it. You could do that. But instead, maybe I want to just revert. Maybe I don't remember what I did, and I just want to go straight back to the situation I was at yesterday. So I know for a fact that this is the commit I want. You'll notice these long identifiers. These are meant to uniquely identify a commit. And so if you need to, for example, go back to a particular point in time, so for instance, you can do something, you can check out a particular commit, that means to go to it. So now if I do git status, it probably says something really complicated. It says head detached. Who the hell knows what that means? Not me. But if I open the tutorial file, that line I deleted is back. You shouldn't do this though. Instead, what you should do if you want to, so I'll go back to the master branch so that I know where I am, because otherwise I'm just on a loose commit in the middle of nowhere and I can't make any other commits. So if I go back to the master branch, I'm back to where I was before. The line's been removed again. If I, rather than checking out the commit, I instead do reset hard, it'll fix the history as well. So if I do git log now, that commit I did before disappeared completely, doesn't exist. I say it's disappeared completely. You can recover it, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. You could recover it by, for example, having noted down the commit hash. Like when you reset to move away from a commit, it doesn't obliterate the commit from memory. It just removes it from your working branch. So if I go, as I said before, if I go back to tutorial, the file is edited as it was before. Maybe now I decide I actually want to delete everything except the first line. I can do that, and I get a new history. A new history on the master branch. So in this case, delete most of the tutorial. And now you can see that's the new state of the history, and that old commit is gone for all intents and purposes. Like I say, it's possible to recover it, but I haven't decided to. So I'm just going to do a command that undoes that commit. It keeps the changes but undoes the commit. It's called a soft reset, but you probably won't need to do it very often. But it returns me to the previous state. So I've got a modified file that's not been tracked. Well, the file is tracked, but the new changes haven't been tracked. If I decided, actually, I haven't made this commit yet, what I just did was a mistake. I want to return to the situation I was. So if I look at the log again, I'm on this commit, but I've made changes to it. I haven't committed those changes. If I want to get rid of those, then I can just do git checkout tutorial. And then it says updated one path. That means it's restored that file. If I go back to tutorial, it's got all the files in it again. And you can even do stuff that's like quite extreme. So I can remove pretty much everything in this file, in this folder. So if I do rm remove car, count primes, practical common list, blah blah blah. It's all gone. If I look at the status, the files are no longer there. They're really not there. But Git remembers them. So if I do checkout dot, they're all back. You might be wondering if I did git reset hard, the same command I used earlier, did git reset hard to the previous commit, that would also have fixed it. Last thing I should mention is seeing what changes you've made. So you can see the difference. I said before you can roll back changes. You can also see what the difference is between previous versions. If I go to count primes, for example, and I don't know, I delete this comment, then if I do git diff, it'll show me these are the changes that I made. I removed that comment. If I do, so I could do git, so this git add thing is kind of annoying because I have to know what file it is that I want to track. But maybe I don't want to do it that way. There's two kind of shortcuts. One is git add dot, which I did before, which will just add everything. But if you want to be a bit more selective, like there's some changes you want to keep and some that you don't. Actually, let's make that happen. So maybe I'll add some changes that I do want and some changes I don't want. So maybe I delete this function. No, make it further away. Delete this function entirely, which is just a mistake. But I also delete the comment, and that's actually a change that I want. So I could do -p, and I'll do this kind of cool interactive thing where it shows me all the changes that are there. And I can choose whether to include them or not. So in this case, they're really close together, so it's counting them as one change. I can press S to split it in half, and it'll let me pick which ones I want. So you can see now it's only showing me the top one because I asked it to split. This kind of cryptic interface, you have to read the manual if you want to know exactly how to use it. But in this case, I'll say, no, I don't want this change. Yes, I do want this change. What does the status look like now? Well, it says modified and it's stage and not staged. The green ones are staged. The staged means it'll be included in the next commit. Unstaged means it won't be included in the next commit. So so there's the removal of the function is not going to be committed. The removal of the comment will be. So I can do git commit, remove my comment. What does it like now? Well, if I do git diff, it'll show me. It says there's just a function missing, which is what I said. So maybe I decide, well, I don't want that. I don't want my function to be removed. As I said before, you can do git checkout dot, or you can do git reset hard. Do git log to get the commit again. Can do git reset hard, and that'll roll me back to exactly where I was before. Everything's clean. So that's the basic idea of using Git locally to track stuff. So that's how you get different versions. I haven't said anything about branches, which lets you have multiple sequences of versions going on in parallel. It's probably not necessary if you're just trying to mimic like a Dropbox kind of workflow where you save everything and you have the same linear history somewhere else. You just want to go backwards and forwards. You don't want to go have stuff going independently. So I'll stop there. I'll do another video about remote changes. So how do you push it to a remote? How do you pull it from some other place?